Hello everyone, welcome. I am Kim Beegler, owner of Ewethful Fiber Mill, and I am in the mill doing some carding today. And this is, if you are new, I should say, I own a wool mill. We have a farm with loads of woolly animals, and I talk a lot about wool, farming, all of the things, processing, hand spinning yarn. So welcome. If you're coming back, you know what I'm all about, wool. So this is a Romney wool, natural colored gray Romney wool that I blended with some silk. And this is kind of a silk I got in an estate sale. This batch of it is kind of bright oranges and pinks. And I'm gonna say this is probably 10%. This is heavier if you were watching than a batch I did recently. I need to keep an eye out on my other end of the machine while I'm doing this. So here we are, and I am just feeding in or laying this out nice and even as I can kind of feel out an eyeball, which over the years has gotten pretty good. And the reason is so that the roving comes out on the other end nice and even, to make this as pleasant as I possibly can for all of us hand spinners. So we're going to get this all set up, and then we're going to go pop on the other end. I think the roving is about to fall out, so let's go over and see. Ooh, let's see if we can make it before it falls. Oof. I'm gonna do a little push here. Ooh, there we go. So here it is coming out, and it's such a great example of just a little bit of additional color can really change the color of the end roving here, right? That's 10% of that pinky orange. And there it is coming out, and it's a whole different color. It's going to be so lovely to spin, and I'm excited I remembered that I had this silk. So it's inspired all sorts of other ideas, and I hope it does the same thing for you all. So there it is. Okay, we've got a lot of carding in this episode, so we're going to carry on. But I am getting ready to pick out a bunch of different alpaca, 100% alpaca. I have not done this in probably years and years and years, but I'm going to be picking out alpaca. So I have got two different fleeces here, and I'll get in and talk a little bit more about them in a little bit. But there is a really deep dark brown, dark fawn, I would say. It has a little more red tint to it. And then I've got a couple of white fleeces that I am just finishing out. These white fleeces, both of them, I have two that were really pretty fine, and so they're going in. And you know, alpaca is just like wool, as in there are microns, and there is finer alpaca and there is less fine alpaca. So you just, you know, it's the same thing. Do you want really fine or do you not? So I'm going to start this up, and then I'll keep talking to you all. And I'm just kind of going through. There is no rhyme or reason to my picking here. This is a finer alpaca, and it actually did try to felt up a little bit on me in the washer, so I'm just giving some of it a little bit extra tug so that some of those spots that did felt up, and a lot of time what I'll do is pull one way, and if it's getting kind of knotted up just like your hair, I go in a different direction and start to pull it that way. So but when you get into finer fibers, there is more likelihood that they are going to felt on you. So you have to be a little more gentle. So I'm just going back and forth with colors because it's all going to be blended up. So I'm just trying to give it a heads up on the blending at this stage. And then it just is easier as it gets to the carder for it to be more blended. I'm not looking for perfection. So like I said, there is different microns, you know, depending on if you're buying from a larger alpaca breeder, they may know the microns on a lot of their alpaca. So you can always ask. I was buying some recently, and they were like, we have some that are 18 micron. And I said, no, I don't want 18 micron. That's too fine for me. I don't want to have it be extra challenging in my machines. So you can get it in all different. I like a good 20, 21, 23, you know. That's just how it just gets more difficult to process. It's more sensitive as it, sorry you all, I'm just kind of diving into some fleeces that are on the ground too. So I'm here still. anyway, it just is what you're looking for. And I know my equipment, and I know that 18 is going to it's going to be a little bit difficult to process. So, you know, they were like, cool, even better, right? Because a lot of people, if you're going to buy an alpaca fleece, spend a lot of money, then go for that extra nice one, right? Because you're not buying at the same level that I'm buying at. And you are probably doing it by hand or doing it on your carder at home, and it might be a little less intense. So it's just your personal preference. But the big thing is not all alpaca is grown the same. And you can certainly get alpaca that may not lend itself to extra softness. You know, it may have a lot of guard hairs and different things like that. As alpacas age, they do get guard hairs and other such things. So anyway, hopefully there's a little soothing happening as I talk about this. I'm going to grab two, because I know myself, and the chances of me sitting down to record are not great. So before we get off, I'll kind of compare a little bit of this side by side. I have some nice locks pulled out. So I'm just gonna go through colors back and forth, let it blend up. And then because the humidity is so high right now, in Alpaca, it's rainy here in Oregon, it's officially fall weather. And I was able to run this first batch through the carder without conditioning it, which is amazing. Alpaca loves to static during processing, so it's nice when I can not have to add that extra step of conditioning. I will take advantage of it. So I am going to finish this up, and then I'll let you guys see how it looks on the other end, and then we'll head to carding. Okay, true to form, I forgot to, apparently the microphone was not running during this section. So I'm gonna have to overdub a little bit here for you all, but I basically just wanted to see the fiber just up close and personal getting pulled in between the rollers. And after it gets pulled in here off of the picker, it then goes through the giant drum that has very large, very mean looking teeth on it, and that just between the two opens the fibers up so that we can see it coming out the other end. And we will pop to the other side here, and we will see the fiber coming out of the picker and getting pumped out into this beautiful shower that I have here. And you can see what is lovely is that the humidity is so nice in the building that the alpaca fiber is just flying all around. When it is humid, or when it's not humid, it will just stick to the sides of that shower. So that's kind of something I'm always looking for when I'm checking humidity, is it getting stuck to the side, and or is it getting stuck in the drum of the picker? And these are beautiful conditions. So we'll go ahead and get this opened up and take a peek at the fiber. And I don't have to condition it because it is so humid. So I'm basically just gonna pull it out. I'll let it sit for a little bit because because it did just get processed, the chances that it has some static energy in it is a little bit higher. So rather than taking it straight from the picker to the carder, I'll pull it out, let it sit for a little bit just so it kind of settles back down, and then I will get it on the carder. Lots of times I don't get stuff picked and carded in the same day. It's just I have stuff already ready to go on the carder, other stuff picked. So we will go ahead and let this sit for a bit, and then we'll go card it up. All right, we are at the carder, and it is time to card up this alpaca blend. This is the last of what I've got going, so I'm excited I'm gonna actually start this up. And this fiber, I think I mentioned, is for Fiber Club for November. And I made an announcement to all my Fiber Club subscribers that December will be the last month of Fiber Club, and those who are on the waiting list got an email too. So I'm not going to, I kind of just have gotten to a point where I feel like to source greater breeds, I would have to start leaving the Pacific Northwest and California, and that just adds a level of expense as we have to ship a lot of stuff. it just started to feel like maybe after 5 years, Fiber Club had run its course. So I will still be milling. I'm just gonna start doing more smaller batches and such to fill the gap of that time, which for me is kind of fun because it just lets me be a little more creative more often, right? I'm not having to focus on a giant batch or source that giant batch. So that's what's happening. I've encouraged everybody that was in Fiber Club to get over into my Patreon because as I process, there will be more fibers available technically to everybody. But my Patreon is where I usually put things up first. They get early bird special. So if you are excited by some of the stuff you see me making here on the channel, head over to my Patreon. Also, it's a great way just to support what I do here. So, and there's lots of other great perks, like meetups and workshops. So let's go over, and this is probably about to fall over. Let's see if we can catch it before. No, it's already down. So we'll try. But you can see what's happening here. Oof, I just love that color. I'll scroll in for you a little bit. What I'm gonna do is actually stop the machine because that's a pretty big, and it's almost full anyway. But you can see, and there's some on the ground down here. Whoop. So that's what happens if I'm not paying attention. We are planning on getting some bigger bins here, which would be lovely because I won't have to watch this side anymore. I think I'm gonna just pull this out because because it's already getting full anyway. I've pushed it down quite a few times before we got on. So I'll just go through and kind of even this out to get everything off of the ground. But you get a nice, beautiful view of what it looks like. It's, of course, beautifully soft. All of these fleeces were stunning. And this is just kind of, it's gonna be kind of a beautiful grayish blend here. So we'll set that back up and then we just let it go again. And it'll just drop in there. So you can see if I have a bigger bin, it would be nice. I can't get too big, but just a little bit wider would be lovely. And there it is. And I'll do a little video of spinning it. If you haven't spun alpaca before, it can be a little more challenging. It's more challenging. I always recommend not starting hand spinning on alpaca because it is very slick. It's very slick to spin. So we'll do a little spinning and I'll talk about it before we head out for the week. Okay, you all, since there is so much alpaca processing in this, I thought let's talk a little bit about alpaca fiber. So I laid out a couple of samples that I have here of some lovely alpaca that I got recently. And starting on the left here, this is a nice dark fawn alpaca. You can see it's got some nice crimp to it. Alpaca, I didn't even know alpaca had crimp until I got some alpaca that had crimp and I was like, whoa. And one of our alpacas, when she was younger, had a lovely crimp to her. So this is a really lovely alpaca, but I think you can pretty much see how different this is. Now this is still soft. Next to skin soft for sure. But then we get to this one and look at the crimp in that and the color. So there's a wide range of colors in alpaca that goes from whites through grays, creams, fawns, browns, blacks, and these, you know, these different dark fawn colors. So you can get a wide range of colors. And when you blend that up with, say, a white wool, it's gonna really change. It doesn't take much color. Hopefully you've learned that in watching some of my videos to really change a fiber color by just some small blending. So we've got this beauty, and then we have this, which is probably my favorite of the three, just by handle for sure. I wish you could reach out and feel these, but this is definitely the finer of the three of them. The color is spectacular. You can see it almost has, it has a bit of a luster to it. I shouldn't say it kind of has, it does have a bit of a luster to it. This middle one does as well, this light fawn. This one on the end, not so much. So these are all things that you can look for when you're looking at alpaca. And sometimes if you had a bag of alpaca, some of it may have not any crimp or no noticeable crimp. Some of it will have this little bit, very, you know, noticeable. And then this one is noticeable, but the handle of this one is by far the best, if you could feel them all. So I just wanted you to get an idea of, if you're buying fiber, if you're buying alpaca fiber and you're kind of looking at a bunch of different fleeces, this is something you may not know that may help you. And I'm gonna also show you, let's push these aside a little bit. So this chunk is from the same fleece as this. So this I actually pulled out, and you can see the difference pretty clearly. See how that is just much more hairy like? So this is more of guard hairs is what this is. And these are not going to be as soft as the fiber itself. So like when I see a big chunk like this, I will pull it out and not process it with the rest of the finer alpaca, because this can add an extra itch. If there's a little bit, it's not the end of the world, because a lot of it is going to fall. You can kind of see those little hairs at the tip. Those especially are going to be a little more prickly, and they may not spin in as well also. So that's something I would pull out of the fleece, but very normal, right? It's not all going to be necessarily. Okay, watch this one. See that? So this is a shorter, and the whole fleece was not this short. This was a chunk that was just, you know, where there were more guard hairs, and it was shorter. But look at, you can see really clearly all these guard hairs. And these are going to be more prickly. So if you have some, like I said, it's not the end of the world. Just process it through. I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, you can pull these out. Look. There you go. There's the guard hairs. And this is going to be a lot softer now without those guard hairs in there. Depends how painstakingly you want to go through. Now you'll notice like this, no guard hair. And my alpacas have gotten more guard hair as they have aged. Their fiber itself is still lovely, but it has shortened and it's gotten more guard hair. So a lot of people will dehair alpaca for this reason. You know, an older animal or an animal that is more prone to guard hair, the kids still have some beautiful fiber under there. So anyway, I hope that helps a little bit in learning about alpaca. Okay, let's get on to spinning. All right, here we are. I am at the Lendrum. This is a single treadle Lendrum, and I am not that well versed on spinning on these wheels, so I thought, you know what, it's good for everyone to see that. That's a pretty awesome little thing about it, that I am not a perfect spinner by any means. Whoops. And so let's get used to it. This is a single treadle, and I am also used to spinning on a double treadle, but it really honestly doesn't matter. Let's pull the tension up a little bit. You can spin single on a double treadle wheel. Sorry, y'all, I'm trying to kind of get my bearings on this wheel. So this is the 100% alpaca that I'm spinning. And right now, Wish is smacking at me. And I'm just spinning short forward. The reason, and I actually could pull off on the tension just a little bit because it feels like it's yanking away from me. I did put a rather high twist on this. I have it at the smallest whirl, which means twist is going to go in the fastest. And I'm spinning a pretty thin yarn here short forward. So alpaca does not have any scales on it, which means that it is going to be a lot more slippery in your hands. So if you are new to spinning, I always say do not start with alpaca. When you start with alpaca, you might even want to like start with alpaca wool blend so that the wool has a little bit of scaliness to you and it's not as slippery. I think short forward makes you feel a little more in control. So if you are able to spin both but haven't spun 100% alpaca, maybe start with short forward and see how that feels. That's a little too thin. But remember that even though it is slick, you want to try to keep your hands nice and loose. Tight hands is going to make for an uneven yarn and less fun of a spinning experience. And I know it seems scary, but every time I sit at the wheel, I probably will remind light hands. So let's go ahead and I'm going to see what I can do. This is spinning really beautifully. And now let's see if I can reverse it out. And I don't think I have the camera set up very well for this, but It is spinning really lovely. Long draw as well. Let me see how far my camera is going here. Might need to replace the camera. Let's do that for you. And that's one of the ways I get things to stop. And of course, the second that I stand up, Miss Wishy is all over the spot. If you've come to mill day, you know this is a wish trick. Uh-oh, and she's pulling my microphone. All right, so long draw, it's spinning beautifully. Alpaca, so it's going to have a pretty miraculous drape, right? Because it doesn't have it doesn't have the bounce back in memory that, oh my goodness, Wish is underneath. I don't know if you can see it, but she's underneath playing with the microphone. Hopefully it's still working. Alpaca does not have the memory that wool has. So what does that mean? It means that your finished item, your finished yarn is going to have an amazing drape to it, and that drape could continue to grow after that, because it doesn't have the way that if you wear wool, when you take it off and you fold it up and put it back in, then you go back and it's kind of like miraculously, oops, it's kind of miraculously resized itself again, right? If it stretched at all while you were wearing it, it goes back. Well, alpaca's not going to do that. So it's one of the reasons that a lot of us love to blend alpaca and wool, is so that you do get a garment that will have some of that memory and bounce back to it. Now, with alpaca, ways to counteract that are to do sort of more of a complicated pattern. In knitting, you would probably, doing a cable pattern where there's going to be more kind of just ways that the yarn is working back on itself, so it won't stretch quite as, if you do just like a basic knit shawl, it's going to keep stretching. But if you do something that is lace work or something that has some cables, it just helps maintain the form of the fiber a little bit better. So it's just things to take into account. If you made 100% sweater and you just knit it, it's going to grow significantly over time. So both of these ways of spinning it are absolutely beautiful. I don't know which way I would go. You know that it's such a lofty, beautiful, fine alpaca that you could spin this short forward and it would still make a nice, soft yarn. And alpaca is very warm. So it doesn't necessarily need the extra warmth that would be added if you were going to spin it long draw. So it's really just, whichever way. I'm not even going to say, you all. I'm not even going to say. Whatever I do, I would probably spin it a thinner weight yarn, because I just think it's going to hold its shape better and be easier to knit. If you have a yarn, and we're going to come look at this here in a minute, if you do a heavier weight yarn and it's not twisted enough, it's just also not going to be that easy to work with as far as knitting, like getting your needles through it or your crochet hook through it. So I'm going to take you all off here and we'll just peek down. All right, here it is finished up. Really beautiful. It's gonna have a nice depth to it because of those different colors all spun together, and you can kind of see there, whoop, if I can find the right place for it, that there's just gonna be different colors throughout because of those three colors that we blended together. So I think I've talked enough about alpaca, right? We'll see. Here, hey everyone, I was not camera ready today, so you're just gonna have to deal with me. But I think that's it. Feel free to ask questions, comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts or any questions you have about spinning alpaca or anything else about the mill. So thank you all so much for watching this week. I hope everybody's doing well. Until next time, stay healthy. Be kind, be kind, be kind, be kind, right? We need that in the world, and make all the pretty things. All right, take care. Don't forget to subscribe and head to my Patreon community if you're interested in supporting what I do here. And more fun, more fiber fun. Okay, thank you.